Disclaimer: the following content contains mature and controversial themes which don't reflect my or the original author's beliefs. So, viewer discretion is advised.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy, Omni-sensei. Welcome to What If I Was Reborn as Momo's Twin with Creation of All Things Quirk, Part 2. If you enjoy this type of content, please gently annihilate the like button. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Remember to check out the original story linked in the description. Without further ado, let's get into it. In February, Najire returned from school for a week-long holiday. Although the term was still going on, she returned to see her family and friends and take them with her to Mizutofu, where the UA is located. Momo had already been recommended and would take the entrance exam for recommended students in the second week of February, while Makami would take the normal entrance exam in the last week of the month. Later, they will stay in the city in their new home all together. Makami woke up in the morning in good spirits and walked down. For the last few months, he had been working on several projects, and he was proud to say that he completed most of them. Now, all he had to do was spend an amazing week with her girlfriend, go to Mizutofu, and finally become a student of the prestigious UA. Oni-chan. As he walked down the stairs, Momo jumped into his embrace and hugged him. "Good morning. Good morning, cutie." He patted her head and kissed her cheek, making her blush. "What were you up to?" "I was playing with Eri-chan." Momo answered. "We were playing with Uni-chan." "Done with the reconfiguration already, Momo-chan?" he asked her sister. He created Kuma-chan by studying Dali. Momo was mostly with him when he was working on something, thus she too had a general idea of how it worked, so she was also working on creating something similar. Although she was 2 weeks slower, she created a robot of her own, although a bit different. "Let's go and see." She dragged him to Eri's room. He saw his little sister playing with a bear-shaped robot, while a unicorn made of metal was running behind them. "Congrats, Momo-chan." He side-hugged her sister. The unicorn was really unique in design, and from the way it was running, it was obvious Momo had grasped the robotics. Dali, although highly advanced, was a bit stiff while moving. Kuma, the robot Makami created, was much better in that regard, but its most remarkable function was the AI he created. After all, he created Kuma to accompany Eri all the time, so it was, in a sense, a guardian that would scan the surroundings and alert Makami in case something went wrong. Momo, on the other hand, focused on movements and improved the joints of the robot. And through the usage of her quirk, she improved the joints by adding tens of small pieces to make them move without any stiffness in them. I learned from Oni-chan. Momo enjoyed the hug and praise as she watched her creation chase after their little sister. Nei-chan. Eri jumped into Mokami's embrace. As she saw them, the unicorn robot stood at his feet and looked up. "Well, it seems like your Nei-chan was a bit creative when creating it," Makami said with a smile, as he looked at the unicorn and saw the hoofs were delicately connected to the joints of the feet. "How was your day, Eri-chan?" "It was super fun. Uni-chan is so energetic." Eri started to narrate how her day went. "It is good that you are having fun." Makami smiled as he placed her down. "Actually, Uni-chan nearly tripped me." Eri smiled and patted the robot as if it was a real animal. "But I am glad. Nei-chan created her for me. I am the one who is glad." Momo jumped onto her and hugged her. "We have to leave you by yourself to train hard, and it makes Nei-chan and Ni-chan guilty." "I know that, silly." Eri giggled. "You two are training hard to become heroes so you can save people in need. So I am not blaming you." Momo and Makami were surprised by the maturity of their little sister. "You are right, Eri-chan." Momo started to pat her head. "And we are proud of you. I know if I am safe and still alive, it is because you two are so strong and awesome." Eri smiled and hugged her sister. "Thanks, Eri-chan." Momo was happy to see her sister have such a positive attitude. Let's eat dinner together, Makami suggested. Najira-chan and Era-chan should arrive shortly with Ka-chan. Okay. Eri jumped and ran to the kitchen. She has to be more careful, Momo said with a sigh. As they made their way to the kitchen, they saw Mika enter from the front door with their guests. Mocha-chan. Nijire dashed from the front door all the way to the kitchen and jumped into his embrace. Makami patted her back with a smile as he hugged back. I missed you, Nijire-chan, he whispered, much to Later's embarrassment. I miss you Susu much, Mocha-chan, Nijire answered with a face-splitting smile. Era looked at them with a wistful smile and a tang of guilt, but it vanished as soon as it appeared. Mom! Great timing, Momo smiled. Servants started to fill the plates while Eri was flailing her head from side to side in eagerness. Oh, we made it for dinner. Good, I will be right back, Mika answered as she went to freshen up. Nijire and Era washed their hands quickly and sat, too. So, how is school going, Nijire-chan? Mika asked the lady of the house. Nay, we are learning super fun things. There are crazy strong guys in our school too. There is this guy Mirio, and whenever he uses his quirk, he gets naked. There is also Tamaki. He can turn into any animal he eats. Nijire started to speak about crazy things she experienced in UA. I also started my internship with Ryukyu. That's great, Nijire-chan. Mika said, but you must be tired because of the internship. I am sure there is a lot of training that goes on. Ryukyu, the dragon hero, right? Eri asked in some fear on her small face. Oh, not to worry, Eri-chan. Era answered, Ryukyu is a good girl. Oh, that might be my bad. Makami sheepishly laughed. I was telling Eri-chan stories about bad dragons for years now. I think I created a trauma. Eri-chan. Ryuku is super cool and very nice. She is also a very strong hero and saves people. She is very lovely to children too. Nijire too smiled as she explained. If Nichan says so, she must be good, Eri said as she tried to reach for her food. Makami reached out to help her. Nichan, I can do it myself. Okay. Makami let her go, and she took her chopsticks and started to eat like a pro. So, Nijire-chan, how is your internship going? Momo turned to their older sister. It is going great, Momo-chan. Nijire smiled. A lot of it is training and stuff, but I am enjoying it. Well, that is great. Makami smiled. He stopped when he noticed Eri was trying to reach something. Eri-chan, what happened? I am trying to reach the sauce, Eri said sheepishly. Could you help me get it? Sure. Makami got up and grabbed a bottle and gave it to Eri. Thanks, Nichan, Eri said in a cute voice. It was the voice of an angel. Oh, it's nothing, Eri-chan. Makami sat back in his chair. Her smile was contagious, and Makami felt his heart melt. So, Momo-chan, how have you been? Era asked. I have been doing great. Momo smiled. I am a little bit nervous about the exam. But since Oni-chan said I can sweep the floor with others, it should be easy. You are more than fine, Momo-chan, Era said with a laugh. But all your training and stuff, you must be losing weight. You have to take care of yourself. Hee, with the last mutation, I don't have to gain weight to use my quirk anymore. So although I look more muscular, I can use my quirk for 10 times longer now, Momo answered. That is good to hear. Era smiled. Mom, can I get seconds? Eri asked. Sure, honey, Mika answered. Eri-chan, you can eat everything you want, Era said as she patted her head. Eri, what is it? Makami asked as she saw her frowning. It is just, Eri answered while holding her head. I am trying to get some memories, but can't remember. Memories? Makami was surprised by her statement. Yes, Momo-chan has been telling me about all the fun times I had with Ka-chan, Ne-chan, and Ni-chan. I want to remember it so that I can enjoy them too, but I can't remember, she said with a cute frown. It was because you were small at the time. Makami laughed. How about I tell you everything I remember when I tuck you to sleep? Really? she asked with stars in her eyes. Of course. Makami puffed his chest as she patted her head. I present to you, state-of-the-art, fully automated house, created by yours truly, Smart Mansion Markai. Makami stood in front of the fence and looked at the beautiful two-storied mansion and showed it to the girls behind him. Fences are created by the hardest alloys on Earth and can take a punch from All Might. In case of any sign of an intruder, fences will turn into spiky spears and will be covered with sticky and slippery liquid that will mark anyone touching them for a week. It is nearly impossible to wash them off, so even if the perpetrators try to escape, they will be recognized by the same liquid. The house itself is a safe house. Behind the concrete are the carbon nanotube pieces, which are virtually impossible to manufacture on Earth, but Momo and I can create them. That is a big secret, as it is banned, so we have to keep it to ourselves. The wall itself is not regular cement, but ultra-high-performance concrete. Together with carbon nanotube, the house is nigh impenetrable. It is resistant to extreme cold and hot too. There are 77-dimension stabilizer gravity devices placed in strategic points around the house, so even the rare spatial quirks cannot penetrate the security. It is impossible to enter this house without the permission of the admin. I initially thought of giving all of you access to the system, but later I gave up on this idea due to safety issues. There are some crazy quirks that can control people, so if I give you authorization, it might spell trouble for our family. Makami said with a guilty smile. No need to trouble yourself, Mocha-chan. We all support your decisions and know why you are worried. Mika said with a smile and others nodded. Good. Let's walk in then. He smiled back as he placed his hand on the door. The door itself is also a carbon nanotube but covered with wood, so it looks normal. There are pistons carrying most of the door's weight when pushed by one of the authorized guests. If an unauthorized person tries to push the door, they cannot even move it 1 inch even with the strength quirk. The glasses are crystallized carbon nanotubes, so they are safe too. Now that I summarized the security, let's talk about technology. Makami smiled as the door scanned his fingerprint, eye, and brainwave. The door scans your fingerprint, iris, and brainwave to make sure it is you who is trying to enter. I will later plant chips in your bones and add that too, to required security checks, so even if a person with a quirk can copy you perfectly, they will fail to enter. It will also allow us to find each other's locations in case something bad happens. The house is fully automated, meaning everything works with robots. The kitchen is one giant machine, and each AI that runs each room is different. When you buy raw materials, you can place them into the mouth of the machine over there, and the AI will sort them out by date and will use them when required. From now on, we don't even need to cook, as the robot in the kitchen is capable of cooking more than 5,000 recipes. She is also capable of learning the preferences of people. If you need anything else, you can simply ask for it, and it will deliver it to you. There are also built-in ducts where robots deliver items to the rooms directly. If you need water in the middle of the night, all you need to do is call for your assistant and it will be delivered to you. Amazing! Era said as she looked at the kitchen. Can I get a glass of tea with 2 spoonfuls of sugar, please? She asked. Cocoa milk, Najira and Eri said at the same time. Coffee, black, Mika requested. A glass of milk, Momo lastly asked. As you wish, masters, a woman's voice answered, and soon, a robot left the wall and carried all the orders. Dolly, the girls called at the same time. Masters! Dolly bowed without shaking the tray she was carrying. Girls took their drinks, and Makami continued with the tour. You can place dirty dishes anywhere in the house, and robots will pick them up to wash. But for clothes, you have to place them in certain spots to prevent confusion. After all, something that might be seen as dirty might be wanted to be used again. All the clothes will be branded with unique codes of residence, so after cleaning, they can be delivered to specific rooms. You can use that machine over there to brand your clothes. Don't worry, the ink is invisible to the naked eye, so it will not ruin your clothes. You can also ask your personal assistants to remember your wardrobe design. So after your clothes are cleaned, Robots can place them in a designated area folded. Makami explained as he enjoyed the shock on the girls' faces. The house is under the constant watch of AIs, so if there is anything strange, they will notify me, and depending on the situation, police and ambulance as well. They are checking heat, hormone levels, and other essentials to watch our health. You can also control the temperature of your rooms. The walls are built with isolation and temperature control devices, so without using heating or cooling machines, rooms can be adjusted to any degree. Robots will clean the house, so you don't need to do anything. In this house, all we have to do is live like queens and king and enjoy our lives. Makami smiled brightly as he finished his presentation. Amazing! Momo looked at the house with her mouth wide open. You are amazing, Onaiken. Hihi. I am just overprotective of the people I love, he cheekily said. That is why we love you. Mika laughed as the girls all came to hug him. So the tour is over. Girls, this is your home, you can decorate it and change your rooms at will as you please. I just hope you will call me after you are done, so I can see what you have done with it, he said with a smile. Of course, Mika said as the girls nodded. There is one thing I want to ask you all. Mokami's face grew serious. I want you all to promise me something. Yes, whatever it is, the girls answered. Okay, I want all of you to train your quirks so that you can protect yourselves. It is my job to protect you, but I still want all of you to have great control over your quirks, so you can hold yourself together in case I am delayed by something. I know some of you think your quirks are weak. He gazed at Mika and Era, but you have to realize there is no weak quirk, only a weak user. Okay, I promise. Era was too first to promise. Me too, Mika said after a second. We four, Najira and Momo said at the same time. Makami noticed Eri's sad face, so he went to hug her. Eri, you were just a child, so don't worry. When you grow up a little more, I will train you myself, I promise. Yay! Nichan is the best. Eri jumped onto his neck. Good. Now let me show you your rooms. The following day, Momo followed Najira to take the recommended exam. Makami wanted to go with her, but all he would do there would be wait outside. So he opted to wait in the house and play with Eri instead. She was coming along nicely and getting more and more confident every day. Since she grew up with them, she learned common sense and was homeschooled, so when she reached the age, she would start her career just like he and Momo did. Whatever she wanted to be at the time. He was also following the baby he placed instead of Eri at the time. Since that family crumbled in anime because Eri accidentally killed her father. The baby girl he placed still lived happily with her new family. She would be an orphan, but now she had a loving family, so it was redeeming in his heart. Makami went to the kitchen to cook some food for Eri and himself. Eri was learning how to cook with him for a while, and she was so happy when she discovered she could cook and do much more. She was still a kid, but learning to take care of her Nichan was something she yearned for. Although the kitchen was fully automated, there were basic instruments to cook a simple meal, and Makami too enjoyed cooking from time to time. He also liked to spend his time with Eri, so win-win. Mika and Era went to work in the morning, so it was just siblings, and after cooking breakfast, the duo sat in front of the TV and ate while watching some cartoons. After they finished, Makami decided to do some training while waiting for Momo to return. There were only 2 weeks left since the entrance exam, and he had to admit he was a bit excited. Although he knew he could win easily, he was still nervous about the whole thing. He wanted to be in the same class as his sister. He also wanted to make a good first impression. He long ago decided to change the world, and to do so, he had to be a strong hero. But strength only wasn't enough. For example, Endeavor was strong, but he wasn't liked by the people, so his authority was limited. All Might was strong, but he didn't have a say in the world of the rich, so he was still oblivious to shady things happening in the underworld. There were all sorts of strengths. Raw, popularity, and money were just 3 of them. That is why he had to make a good impression in the school and media so people would accept him. He had confidence in his power, and he was sure he could become one of the strongest people on Earth in a couple of years with his quirk. He was also one of the richest people already, and after he inherited the family company, he would be inside the circle of those bastards. All he required was popularity. If he could have that, he could change the world. Oni-chan, what are you going to do? Eri asked. I am going to do some training. Do you want to join me or stay here? I want to watch Oni-chan, Eri said with a big smile. Makami smiled back at her and put her on his shoulder. Then let's go. Makami controlled his body and ran with his sister on his shoulder to one of the many special training areas in the house. To keep the girls from depending on their quirks only, Makami had special training areas built in the house. The one he was going to use this time was the martial room. For almost 10 years now, he and Momo had been taking private classes, and the duo had mastered many martial arts. They were also masters in many weapons. He decided to make use of some weapons to blow off some steam and keep his muscles fresh. He was planning to use a weapon in the entrance exam after all. When he entered the room, he found the basic weapons on the wall and he put some training mats on the fighting ground. Oni-chan, why do you train so much? Eri asked. Makami smiled and gently patted her head. I am trying to become a hero, and in order to accomplish that, I have to be strong. In this world, power governs everything. No matter how strong your intentions are, if you don't have strength, you are powerless. That is why I try to be stronger every day. Do you want to be a hero too? I think so, Eri said as she looked at him and smiled. Well, I am sure you can do anything, no matter what you want. Makami smiled back and kissed her forehead. Eri then placed her hands on his cheeks and gave him a huge smile. Thanks, Nichan. Makami hummed and patted her head. Then the training started. It was just a training session to relax his muscles, so he went easy on himself. He started by practicing some unarmed martial arts, then a little exercise to get some sweat. After that, he used some basic weapons he had been training with for years, such as a sword, axe, spear, baton, and knife. His goal was to be first in the entrance exam. It was sort of a personal challenge for him. As he was practicing some combos, he noticed the time and sighed. He had been practicing for 3 hours now. 10 minutes break, he said to himself. He then looked at the chair and noticed Eri was curled up and sleeping. He sighed in guilt and scooped her up, then took her to her bed and tucked her in. After resting, he returned to the training room and continued. He picked a bakken, a wooden training sword. It was the weapon used for kendo, in which the user tried to strike the opponent with the lightest touch. It was a perfect weapon for his training. The weapon had 2 flat sides and no edges, so it was ideal for training purposes. Of course, this bakken was made of special wood, so it was much, much heavier than its counterpart. Makami walked back to the mats and placed the sword against the wall. He then took his stance and started to train. He started with basic strikes, moving his sword like a dancer. He slashed and cut, bending his hips and torso to perform smooth movements. As he went on, his arms became warm, as well as his chest. His fast movements started landing on him, and he felt the need to go faster. Using an arm to grab the sword, he moved his hips and torso in a circular motion. His arms burned with the weight of the weapon. He continued to practice, feeling like a blade. As the practice continued, he started to go faster and faster, feeling the rush of adrenaline mixed with his blood. When he finished, he breathed heavily as his muscles burned with the effort. He looked at the sword and almost felt bashful. He had been training so much that he couldn't even keep up with his own weight. He then placed the bakken back on the wall and left for the living room. Eri was still sleeping, so he didn't wake her. He noticed that it was already evening and thought that Momo should be returning soon. He then decided to wake up Eri and head to the kitchen to cook dinner. I'm going to wake up Eri after taking a bath. We can cook together again. Makami then took a quick bath and went to the little girl's room and gently shook her, trying not to startle her. Nichan, Eri said as she rubbed her eyes. I'm going to the kitchen to cook. Are you hungry? Yeah. Then let's go together. Okay? Okay, Eri said with a smile. Makami then put Eri on his shoulder and headed for the kitchen. The duo cooked for everyone, and as they were about to finish, the front door opened and Mika and Era walked in. 5 minutes after them, Najira and Momo too arrived. Momo was ecstatic, which only meant that she passed the exam. "I am proud of you, Momo-chan." He went to hug his sister and kissed her forehead. "All thanks to you, Oni-chan." Momo giggled as she blushed. Najira looked at them with a smile and hugged both. "It is finally the day." Makami looked at the entrance of the Best Hero Academy in Japan and definitely one of the best in the world. He came along, despite all the girls insisting on coming with him. He didn't want them to wait for him while he took boring exams, and he knew they were supportive even if all of them were enjoying themselves at home. He wasn't insecure enough to assume otherwise. So after thanking and kissing them each on the cheek, he left the house alone and came to UA on foot. When he purchased the land, he chose one close to the school to make it easy for the three of them. He didn't want to take public transportation each and every day after all. As he was looking at the entrance, he heard a cuss word. He turned to see who it was, and to nobody's surprise, it was Bakugo, screaming murder at Izuku, while cursing him to get away from his way. He smirked slightly as he looked at both of them. He didn't care if either of them were with him in the exam, but if Bakugo acted like that to him as well, he wouldn't mind putting some sense into his small brain. Come to think of it, his mother was quite a hottie. He smirked as he looked at the blonde. At the same time, the said blonde turned to look at him with murderous eyes. "Great instincts." "Humph." The blondie snorted and walked away. Makami grinned again. "It is going to be fun." He was about to walk in, but he remembered something, so he made his way toward muttering Izuku. As he said things would change and took a step forward, Makami reached out to grab his shirt and prevented him from falling. He didn't do it so they could be friends, nor did he for Inko. He did it so Izuku and Uraraka wouldn't speak. He didn't want her to get close to him. He had a lofty goal, and lately he wasn't ashamed to admit it. He wanted most of the women in the series. There, he said it. He tried to deny it and disprove his greedy and perverted self, but he couldn't anymore. He loved his sister, mother, Najira, and Era. He wanted to be Inko and many other women. He was going to conquer all the women he could, and he would prevent them from falling for other men in the class if he could. That's simple. "Oh, Mokami-kun." Izuku finally realized he wasn't going to fall. So he opened his eyes and looked at the person who saved him. "Thank you." "It is nothing, kiddo." Makami waved. "Come on, you are going to be late." "Hi." Izuku nodded and rushed after him. Uraraka, who was watching them, smiled at them as she made her way to the classroom. Makami entered the class with his hands in his pocket. His bangs were falling down from his forehead, and his sharp eyes were scrutinizing the classroom. Everyone that felt his gaze was taken aback. Males felt intimidated, while girls felt their blood rush to their faces. "Who is this stud?" Mina Ashido thought to herself as she bathed in his glory. "Handsome, Jero," Azuitsuya thought. "Kaya." Hagakure Toru blushed, but no one saw it. Almost every girl was blushing at his handsomeness, but he ignored everything and sat in the middle of the classroom. The events followed the anime. Present Mike explained the exam. Izuku muttered to himself and fanboyed the hero while Bakugo insulted the boy. While he was doing so, obnoxious clever Dick Ida questioned the hero and got his answer. "Dickhead," Makami muttered to himself. After explanations, they were separated into groups. He was in the first, so he made his way to the first mock city and stood in front of the door. "Start." Not after a few minutes, Present Mike shouted and doors were opened. He dashed forward as soon as he heard the shout and created pair of boots under his feet. One of his projects was creating clothes with solidified and hardened skin cells. Since both he and Momo had to create things out of their bodies, they needed to dress skimpy. Although he didn't mind, he also didn't want Momo to undress whenever she wanted to create something. Not because he was jealous of her, not really. She was his, and others could gawk at her and die in envy. He couldn't care less. but it was dangerous and he wanted her to be safe all the time. The clothes he created were hardened skin cells so any creation could pass through them as if they were their skins. They were also durable and resistant to a few elements. That is why, as he created boots under his feet, he did it so without revealing any part of his body. Soon, a pair of boots with wheels and pipes appeared under his feet. They were working like car engines that burned highly flammable chemical compounds. As it did so, it gave him the speed of a roaring car. He also created an armpiece that looked like a shark's dorsal fin. The edge of the fin was sharper than a sword, and the design allowed him to maneuver while moving at high speed. "What the hell is that?" "That is cheating," Nobody cried. "That seems to be his quirk, so I don't think it is cheating," Mina Ashido said with a smirk as she glided on the ground. "That is cheating too," Nobody cried. "How can we compete with them?" Nobody see. Makami ignored everyone and moved around the city, and soon he found the first one-pointer robot. He jumped into the air, and his momentum carried him to the robot. He aimed with his right arm and the blade cut the neck of the robot. "1 point," he muttered as he gracefully landed and threw a drone into the air. His eyes shimmered with light as a map appeared in his vision. One of the other projects was altering his biology. Like how he changed his appendix to a fat-storing organ, he changed some of the other parts of his body. His eyes were now much more than the regular human eye. Not only he could activate several visions, such as dark, infrared, electromagnetic, etc., he could even connect to electronic devices like the drone he threw into the air. The AI in the drone was scanning the battlefield and creating a map and projecting it into his vision. Humans gray, 1 pointers red, 2 pointers blue, 3 pointers green, and 0 pointers black. "Flare them in the rainbow if there is anyone in distress," he ordered, and soon the map started to light up. "Let's start this show. That way, huh?" He followed the drone as he looked at the map. To trick others, he ordered AI to move toward the robots he marked on his map, so observers would assume that he was following the drone. But in fact, he could see every single robot on the battlefield. AI even created a path for him to follow for maximum efficiency. Soon, he arrived at an opening with 3 2-pointers and 2 1-pointers. He jumped among them as the robots started to raise their arms to attack him. Spring under his shoes appeared beneath the hidden compartment, and when it was compressed enough, he jumped into the air and his fists started to blow out pressurized air. It helped him to rotate on his axis, and the sharp dorsal fins cut anything around him. Soon, all the robots fell to the ground with tens of cuts all over their bodies. "Such a genius way of battling." Nizu, the principal of UA, the bear mouse dog chimera, said with astonishment. "Who is he?" Vlad King said as he looked at the robots. "Makami Yayarozu. Quirk. Creation. By burning his fat, he can create anything so long as he knows their structural atomic formula." Eraserhead, Aizawa Shota, the home run teacher of 1A, said with a small smirk. "You mean, he is just a normal teen without anybody mutation?" Another said in shock. "That is all hard work. I can see how much effort he put into his training," Aizawa praised. "Although his quirk is versatile, his will and talent are much better." Hehe. Nizu smiled. Last week, his sister was also astonished at the recommended exams. Momo Yayarozu, much like her brother, has great physical power and mind. And do you know what she said when I asked why her brother didn't come with her? "What?" others asked. She said he wanted to prove to everyone they were worthy of seats in the most prestigious school in Japan. But he would still prove that so no one would question them, Nizu said with an evil smile. "Quite arrogant. But I like it." Aizawa copied his smirk as he looked at the screen. 52 points. Makami looked at the count at the corner of his vision and focused on the man again. But this time, he saw a rainbow flare not far from here. Ignoring the robot in front of him, he dashed to that location and saw a boy falling from a building damaged by a robot. He jumped into the air as he created a cushioned tent for the boy to fall onto. Holding someone that falls at high speed could damage them if they are normal people, so he opted to create a cushion so most of the momentum would be transferred. The boy fell into the tent and looked above to see the boy that rescued him dashing away without killing the robot. "You are fine. Get up and keep on fighting." He smiled as he jumped from the building, moving towards another rainbow flare. I don't know how they calculate the rescue points, but it doesn't matter. So long as I save several more, I should be the winner, he thought to himself as he arrived at a battlefield. For 3-pointers had cornered 5 students in the middle and were about to attack. He basically flew over to the battlefield and landed amidst the group. A blanket appeared out of nowhere and fell on top of them while a grande-shaped object was thrown into the air. Makami grabbed the blanket and shouted, "Duck!" 5 students ducked immediately and hid under the blanket. The grenade exploded in the air and unleashed a 2 meters diameter EMP and stopped the robots. "You are safe now. There are 3 more minutes. Keep on fighting." Makami encouraged them and left before they could say anything. He went from one place to another and saved students that were in danger. If he had a choice, he wouldn't attack the robots to save them and leave them to students, but if he couldn't, he would just blast them and move forward. Soon, there was only 1 minute left, and 0-pointers were unleashed onto the battlefield. He jumped onto one of the highest buildings and watched the robot without approaching. He wanted to battle with it, but he wouldn't if he didn't have to. His goal was to leave the best impression on everyone, even nobodies he saved, so when they failed to join UA and watch him at the sports festival, they could say to others his great deeds. That way, his fame would spread even further. Luckily, fortune smiled upon him. A student, in desperation, attacked the giant robot and got caught by it. It wasn't dangerous, but he shouldn't supposed to known it, so he could attack all the same. He jumped from building to building, and when he was close, springs appeared once again and threw him far into the air. He came close to the giant robot's arm and drew out a hilt of a sword. He raised the hilt and aimed at the robot's arm from an angle that wouldn't hit the boy in its arm, nor anyone behind it, and a red beam tore through the air and reached the robot. He raised the hilt, and the beam followed it and cut through the hard metal. In a matter of seconds, the arm was separated from the main body, and with it, half of the robot also was severed. Makami dived towards the arm and held it in his hands. A pair of rockets appeared on his leg and started to fire toward the air to stop his fall. When he was about to hit the ground, all his momentum was nulled, so he stopped the rockets and landed softly. Then he easily placed the robot's hand on the ground. Those who were looking at him, as if he was a rare animal, noticed a pair of gloves releasing pressured air. "Gloves that can carry tons?" one of them asked in shock. Makami smiled at the boy and looked at the teacher rushing in. One of them moved to the hand that rescued the boy, while another came to Makami's side to check if he was okay. "I have no injuries, you can attend to others." "Thank you." He bowed with a smile as he started to walk away. "He is truly amazing," Vlad King sighed as he sat back. "Such control and insight. Yeah, he almost didn't use his power at all. He just got over 40 points at halftime. That would qualify him." Nizu smiled as he looked at the scores. Most of the students would need almost half an hour to beat this exam, and only 1 or 2 of them would reach more than 50 points. From the looks of it, Makami will be the first. He earned first place with rescue points and villain points separately. Together, he is just a monster, Eraserhead said with a sigh. They all knew that Makami deserved to be the first place. His skills were the real deal, and the boy's quirk that could create anything was truly versatile. If he was allowed to go to UA, he would probably become a great hero with the support of the tutors there. He is not only powerful but also a smart tactician. I bet that he could see and calculate his every action as a whole and respond accordingly. Eraserhead said his thoughts. He is a smart one, that is given. He would be a good candidate for my seat. Nizu agreed. Just like his sister, he is smart and powerful. Aizawa shook his head. Indeed, both of them are powerful. That girl got accepted into Class 1A already. She was at the top of the exam too. Smart, powerful, and kind. The perfect heroine, Nizu said as he looked at Momo's picture. She is indeed a genius. I was surprised at the recommended exams, but she still wasn't as good as the boy. Although ability-wise they should be on the same level, execution-wise, he is on another level. Aizawa commented. Yeah, she is smart and powerful and he is great at using his power. Both of them together can bring amazing changes to the battlefield, Vlad King said. Though separating them could also prove useful. A teacher said, they could lead both classes. They are twin siblings. Nizu shook his head. Separating them wouldn't do any good. A boy who creates anything he wants and a girl who creates anything she wants. They are both hard to deal with, but together, they are devastating. That's true. But think about how much they could change battles. The speed of their creations and the power of their quirks. They can match most of the high-level heroes. Their potentials are limitless. They could go further, but in the meantime, we should lead them to become the best hero they can be. Their potential mustn't be wasted. Nizu replied. You are right. They are still students, but they will become top heroes and lead the next generation. If they had been born in our time, they would have been great additions to the ranks. Vlad King smiled. After discussing the champion of the event, teachers focused on other students and evaluated them as well. There were a few bright ones that caught their eyes, but since there were two freaks, they couldn't show their true worth. Bakugo Katsuki is also good seed. Vlad King pointed at the screen where a blonde boy was rocketing in the air toward a three-pointer. Explosion emitting from his hand was propelling him into the air. He had great maneuverability in the air, and by blasting robots with explosions, he earned almost as much as Makami. His temper is foul. Aizawa looked at the boy with scorn. He is bad-tempered, edgy, and vulgar. I can see that his quirk affects his personality, but it is not an excuse to be a scum. Despite his bad manners, he is good at heart. He truly becomes a hero and adores All Might. We should give him a chance and educate him for the better, Nizu commented. This boy is reckless, though, he then added, showing Izuku. He knew the latter was All Might's successor, but his indecisiveness and self-harming style didn't look good on his resume. Although this time around he performed better because of the minor differences Makami caused. Since he saved him from falling as they entered the school, Izuku didn't try to bother Uraraka at the beginning of the exam and had a more favorable spot, near the door. He was able to spot a few one-pointers before others could destroy them and was able to incapacitate them without using his quirk. That alone wouldn't be enough to accept him, but when zero-pointers arrived, he jumped just like he did in the anime to save a random boy who was stuck under another robot. He has zero control over his power. What was he doing for years? Aizawa asked, dissatisfied. According to this, he was quirkless until last year, Nizu said as he pulled out a document. Oh, a late bloomer? Aizawa asked in surprise. His quirk is strong. It is commendable for him to control even this much if he awakened a year ago. Although he lacks discipline in general, his heart is in the right place. Nizu smiled. Then one after another, they reviewed the students who caught their eyes. After deciding the points, giving extras depending on actions, and deducting some when students endangered other students, they came up with a list and started to sort them into classes. At this time, Makami had already reached his home and started to celebrate with his family. Mika, Momo, Era, Najira, and Eri were seated in the living room with cakes and decorations. It was obvious that they had set up a part for his return, but on the wall, a big banner said, Congrats, Mako-chan, Momo-chan. When Makami snuck home, he was welcomed with a big cheer and cakes. His mother hugged him tightly, while his sisters were glad that their brother was accepted to the prestigious UA high school. Momo said she already guessed it would turn out this way because of how hard he worked. Makami kissed her cheek and said it was the same for her. She blushed with the kiss and statement, but the smile on her face suggested she wasn't unhappy with the attention. He was wrapping his arms around his family, hugging and kissing them. Together they cheered for Mokami's and Momo's achievement on the UA entrance exam. They spent hours celebrating alongside, talking about their plans for the future and how proud they were of their children. There was still a week before the results came, but the family was sure the duo would be accepted. So they started to prepare for a week-long holiday with 6 of them. They took a long ride on a yacht, and this time their days were filled with joy and peacefulness away from the city's hustle and bustle. When he built the house, he also created a yacht, as the city of Mizudafu was by the ocean. It was as durable as the house and fully automated, so while they were enjoying the endless blue, they had nothing to worry about. Letters arrived. Najira shouted as she ran inside with 2 envelopes in her hand. The whole family gathered around the couch where Makami and Momo were seated and waited for them to open the letters to see the results. "You go first, Momo-chan." Makami encouraged his sister with a smile. "Okay." Momo took a deep breath and opened the envelope. A disc fell from it, and soon a projection appeared in the room. A bear-dog-mouse hybrid appeared and was greeted with a smile. "Hello? Yaoyorozu and Hato household." "Sneaky bastard." Makami smirked as he saw the glint in the principal's eyes. "Yaoyorozu-san, you came first in the written exam and physical exam, and we would like to see you in our school. If you wish to join our school, please send us your answer no later than the 15th of March with the required papers and your preferred hero costume design. I wish you all a good day." "Congrats, Momo-chan." Makami patted her head as she side-hugged him. "Now let's open mine." Makami smiled and tore open the envelope. A similar message appeared, but this time, there was an additional screen explaining the rescue and villain points. At the top of the list was his name, and next to it, villain point 79, rescue point 75. Even the next in line, Bakugo was nowhere close to him. His villain points were 77, but he had no hero points. On the other hand, Izuku had 50 hero points and 20 villain points. In the original series, they gave him 60 hero points, while now only 50. Still, he managed to kill some robots. Anyway, even if he didn't do anything, he would still be accepted, Makami thought to himself. Izuku inherited one for all. There was no way All Might and Nizu would let him go to another school. "Congrats, Momo-chan, Momo-chan. You are accepted in the best hero school in Japan." Eri, Mika, and Era shouted in unison. They jumped for joy and hugged the twins. "Yes, we are." Makami smiled and hugged them back. They had already celebrated, as they knew the result before it was announced. But seeing them both were in the same class relieved Makami. He didn't want to be separated from his sister. He was about to offer to cook for the family when his phone rang. "Inko? Dolly, can you cook dinner for us, please? Hamburgers?" he asked as he looked around. "Hamburger!" Eri shouted as others laughed. Makami excused himself as he walked to the study room and answered the phone. "Inko-chan, hey," he greeted. "Mocha-chan, sorry to bother you. When I saw Izuku's result, I was so happy. Then I saw your name at the top. I wanted to congratulate you as well." Inko started to talk fast. He could hear happiness and worry in your voice. "Thanks, Inko-chan. And congrats to Izuku as well. Mocha-chan." Inko started but didn't say anything for almost half a minute. "You can say whatever you want, Inko-chan. You are important to me, you know that, right?" When he said that, he heard a sigh of relief on the other side. "Mocha-chan, please take care of my baby." Inko mumbled, "I know we said we would keep our relationship separate from Izuku, and you are not his father or brother, but please." When he came home, he was bruised up and tired and, "Inko-chan, that is fine," Makami said with a reassuring tone. "We are classmates now, and he is my darling son. Of course, I will look after him. Don't worry." Inko laughed and thanked him. They talked for some time and then agreed to meet soon. "Okay, Inko-chan, I will call you later. Don't worry about Izuku," Makami said and ended the call. "Izuku will be fine. He is freaking protagonist." Ending the call, he went to the living room and chatted with the girls. Then they decided to watch a movie, and since Eri was there, they chose a cartoon. When the night arrived, he sneaked into Era's room. "Mocha-chan, what are you doing here?" she asked in a whisper worriedly. "I missed you, Era-chan," he said and kissed her lips. Although she wanted to kiss too, the whole family was in the house. She didn't want to get caught. "We will get caught," Era whispered, as he buried her head in his neck. She missed him more than he could imagine. It had been weeks since the last time they shaboinked, and she was yearning to have him inside her once again. But with the whole family around, they could never find a chance. One time on the yacht, she wanted to sneak into his bedroom, but she saw Mika in the corridor. After that, she promised herself to be careful, but she couldn't take it anymore. She wanted to kiss him, throw him onto the bed, rip all of his clothes and ride him like it was the last day on earth. But with how close they were to others, she didn't dare to. "I don't care," Makami whispered to her ears like a devil and pushed her to the bed. She was flushed and her womanhood was already moist. Makami climbed on top of her and started to kiss her face and lips and moved to her neck. Slowly but surely, he started to undress her, while she mock squirmed. "Mocha-chan, what if we get caught? Then I will declare to everyone how much I love you." Makami smiled. Era almost came with that statement as tears started to form in her eyes. A beautiful smile formed on her face. She stopped protesting and undressed him as well. They kissed as they undress each other on her bed. Makami moved his hands to Era's most sensitive spots and started to pleasure her with gentle touches. She was so aroused and close to an orgasm that she almost screamed with pleasure. But she bit her lips and swallowed her moans. Although he said he wouldn't mind, she still didn't want to get caught in such an embarrassing position. When both were completely naked, Makami crouched down to her sacred garden and tasted her juice with his tongue. Era shivered with pleasure as her hand went to his head and pushed him further. Her left hand, on the other hand, was on her mouth to prevent her screams from going out. Mocha-chan, Era said, completely satisfied. "That was the greatest shaboinking I ever had." "Really?" Makami looked at her with a confused face. "Your screams weren't clear, to be honest." As he said that, panic surfaced on her pretty face. "Oh no! Oh no! What have we done? Everyone must have heard us. It is all your fault, you bastard. You walked in with all that hot body of yours, a pretty face, and tempting words. You seduced me." "I think the one who had been seduced is me." Makami looked at her panicked face righteously. "Look at that hot body of yours. Your face is like an angel's and your lips taste like love. So, don't blame me, Missy. I am serious, Mocha-chan," she said with a frown. "Ha ha ha." He laughed as he hugged and kissed her cute face. "The room is soundproof. You can turn it on and off anytime you want. I did it when I first entered." "Wah!" She looked at Makami with myriad emotions on her face. "You little..." "Stop!" She started to hit his chest while he laughed. "Sorry, Era-chan, you were so cute. I couldn't resist. You are lucky you are cute. Otherwise, I would dump your perfect ass. You are the one with the perfect ass," he said as he reached to kiss her tushy. So another heated session began. "Let's go, Momo-chan," Makami called out as he walked out of the house. It was the opening day of the school, and they wanted to arrive early. Najira wasn't at home, since she had to be with Ryoku for an operation. So Mika, Era, and Eri with twins woke up early in the morning and had a light breakfast after kissing all three women on the cheek. Makami left the house with Momo, who was nervous and excited. "I wonder how the class will be. Who our mates are gonna be?" Momo asked impatiently. "Well, there is Izuku," Makami answered. "I still can't believe he awakened a quirk last year and managed to get in with it." Momo sighed. Since Inko was close friends with Mika, Izuku too would come from time to time, although they weren't really close with him. "Yeah, strange." He shrugged and thought about others. He didn't know who he would replace or if the formation of the classes would be the same or not, but he didn't care. So long as he was with Momo, the rest was okay. They soon arrived at the school and navigated their way to Class 1A. The school was gigantic and the door was equally big. But it was also normal. There were all kinds of quirks and the world had to adapt to that. Mutant-type quirk that changed the user's body could make even everyday acts hard for some people if society hadn't adapted. The simplest example was the door of the classroom. There were many people with bodies bigger than 3 meters, and no regular door would be big enough for them. But now everyone was as understanding and it could easily be seen. Trains were still at regular height and the same went for most transportation. Only Nizu, who had been discriminated against and experimented on, had the empathy to accommodate mutants in his school. He heaved a sad sigh and opened the door. The classroom was empty, as he expected, so he looked for his seat. He was in the right corner, the seat number 20, and the one in front of him was Momo's. Good. They put us together. Momo smiled as she seated. They are sensible after all. He too smiled. After 10 minutes, the door opened and floating clothes walked in. Someone is already here? She exclaimed in surprise. Her voice was cheerful and cute, but because she was invisible, it was impossible to read her face. Hi, I am Momo Yaoyorozu and this is my brother, Makami. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Momo bowed slightly as he introduced them. Makami smiled towards the head of the invisible girl and made eye contact without actually knowing where her eyes were. Or at least he shouldn't have been able to see them. But with a gray sheen in his pupils, the world slightly changed and the previously invisible girl appeared in front of him. She is damn beautiful. She had big eyes, long eyelashes, and thin eyebrows. Her hair was unkempt and shoulder-length green, mixed with golden. It was as if she didn't care how her hair looked, because no one could see it. But he had to admit that unkempt hair gave her a strange, wild charm when mixed with a bubbly personality. Toru looked at Makami and took a step back. He was looking at her eyes directly, which made her face flush crimson. Why is he so handsome? And why is his gaze so penetrating? Oh, probably because his gaze literally penetrates me. Nice to meet you, Yaoyorozu-san and Yaoyorozu-san. I am Hagakure Toru. She raised her hand and made the peace sign, but all Momo could see was raised arm through her shirt, so she didn't know what to do. You don't have to be so formal. Makami smiled. You can call me Makami? Okay. Toru blushed as she asserted, but you have to call me Toru. Deal. And call me Momo. Mokami-san, you are the first in the exam, right? I heard your performance was spectacular. You don't have to use suffixes. Makami is enough, he chuckled then said. Yes, it was me who took the first position in the exam. Wow, you are amazing. Toru beamed while Momo smiled proudly. We are in the same class, so you must be equally amazing, he praised. Hee, thanks. She blushed once again. At this time, the door opened and 2 girls walked in. I thought we were early, one with the long earlobe said. They must be more excited than us, Jero. The other looked like a frog added. Hello all. I am Azui Tsuyu, you can call me Tsuyu-chan. Hello, Tsuyu-chan, you can call me Mocha-chan. Then, this is my sister, Momo, and this is Toru. Toru couldn't hold her laughter as she heard Makami. She never expected him to be so easygoing. Nice to meet you, Tsuyu-chan. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Momo bowed slightly again while feeling awkward for her brother. I like you, Mocha-chan, Jero. Tsuyu smiled as she showed the girl next to her. This is Kyoka Jiro. Nice to meet you, all. Kyoka raised her hand as she looked at the 3 of them. They too joined the conversation and talked about their pasts, which middle school they went to, and how was the exam. You are Makami Yaoyorozu? Kyoka suddenly asked with her mouth agape. Yup, the one and only. He smiled. When you said Mocha-chan, I thought you were someone else. I never thought the first in the exam, the man who destroyed a 0-pointer would be so cool. She said then her face turned red. I mean not cool. Cool like chill. You know, like easygoing. Haha. No worries, Kyoka-chan. I also didn't think all the girls in my class would be so cute. With one sentence, he made all of them blush. The door was opened and closed, and after the other people started to fill the classroom. After the girl, the first to come was Todoroki. But he didn't say anything, just found his seat and ignored them. They weren't going out of their way to force him to speak either. But when Makami saw Todoroki was seated at the furthest corner from him, he was surprised. In anime, he was seated next to Momo, which was now his seat, so that must have changed. Whoever created the seating plan must have thought the two wouldn't get along, as both were strong. When the classroom was almost full, Kyoka, Tsuyu, and Toru also took their seats. To his surprise, Toru was seated next to him, while Uraraka was a seat in front of her. Tsuyu was in front of Uraraka and Kyoka was the next. But when an orange head walked into the classroom, he was taken aback. The big sister of 1B in anime, Itsuka Kendo, sat in front of Momo. How strange, he thought to himself. When the door opened for the last time, and Izuku walked in, he made sure there weren't any more changes and looked at the class. I replaced either Kota Koji or Rikido Sato. My bet would be Kota. Although he has an interesting quirk, he might have failed the exam with my addition or something else. Rikido Sato is strong and probably in class 1B. Itsuka must have replaced the other. As for Yui Kodai, she must have replaced Denki Kaminari. Makami thought to himself as he saw the quiet girl walking in and taking her seat. In the anime, class 1A only had 6 girls while the rest were boys, but this time around there were 8 of them. And surprisingly, they were all seated at the left-right side of the classroom where he was seating. The only other exception was Yuga Aoyama, who was sitting in front of Kyoka. Even the universe wants me to create my harem. Upon entering, the first thing Izuku saw was a clear division between the fairer sex and others in the classroom, and 2 people who had quarreled with him in the entrance exam arguing over his precious Kaken's desk. The bespectacled, obnoxious prick was arguing with the other arrogant asshole about putting legs on the table. Makami ignored all of them and chatted with the girl around him with an easy smile on his face. He did smile at Izuku when the latter waved at him but didn't do anything else. Sadly, forcing boys to one corner awakened their caveman instincts, and the arguments started to heat up and Bakugo started to get even louder, drowning the girls' voices. "That is enough," Makami said, raising his voice only a little bit. But he added a little trick to the voice box, so his voice traveled far and wide. Although it wasn't loud, it silenced the rest of the class, as everyone turned to look at him. "And who might you be, extra?" Bakugo said with an annoyed expression, but Makami just smiled at him. "Don't ignore me, you nobody. Teacher is already here, so let's keep quiet. This is the Department of Heroics, after all, not a hen coop," he said, and at the same time the door opened. A man crawled in and walked out a flea bag, and looked at him with a smirk, while the students were looking at them with their eyes twitching. "I am your homeroom teacher, Aizawa Shota. Pleased to meet you. Although it took you quite a few seconds to calm down, you have potential," he said as he looked at them with a deadpan face. "You have some common sense. Wear these PE uniforms and meet me outside. We will be having Quirk apprehension test. Sensei, what about guidance counselor meeting? Introductions? Shouldn't we follow the curriculum of the school? This unbecoming of prestigious UA," Ida said with all seriousness. "Didn't he say this Department of Heroics? We don't have time for those fustian nonsenses. In my class, you will learn how to become the best of yourself as a hero." "Hi, Sensei." They all acknowledged and went to change. He was last to leave, and saw Mineta walking up and said indignantly, "What makes you so special? Why are you seated with all the girls while I am at the other corner?" If I have to guess, it would be your perverseness." He smiled, but his eyes were cold. "What did you say?" He looked horrified and mad. "Do you think UA is clueless about your daily life?" He chuckled. "They separated us in our entrance exam, and even acquaintances weren't in the same group. They know more than you think, so they probably assumed you would get yourself killed if you were close to girls. Killed? He looked horrified. Well, Momo is my sister, after all. A red glint passed through his eyes as he looked down at Mineta. Don't step out of the line, little boy. He then hummed a song and walked towards the changing room. In the room, some of the boys were looking at him. He greeted them with a smile and took off his clothes with precision. He hung his clothes, so even after the PE there would be no wrinkle on any of them. Wow, sick muscles, dude. A redhead walked up and said, No homo. Thanks. He smiled. Kirishima, right? I am Makami. He offered his hand and the redhead took it. What is your training regime? The redhead asked. Not fixed. I work out my physic at least 2 hours a day, and my quirk 2 or 3 hours, but depending on the situation, it gets shorter or longer. He shrugged. Wow, no wonder you are the first. You work pretty hard. Kirishima commented. I thought you only had a strong quirk, but seems like I was being jealous. You deserve your seat. A tall teen walked up and talked from his tentacle. His quirk was dupli arms. Granted him a set of tentacles alongside his arms. He can transform the tips of these tentacles to replicate other parts of his body such as ears, mouth, or eyes. I am Mizo Shoji. No worries. He smiled. Nice to meet you. I am Hantasiro, but everyone calls me Tape Boy, he said with a sigh. He had a quirk that allowed him to eject adhesive tape he used in his quirk. He was a taping expert, and even tape can be used as his weapon. Nice to meet you too, Makami said. Well, I am going to change now. After he changed, he left the room and meet with girls in the field. Aizawa was already there, and when everyone arrived, he started to talk. UA preaches about freedom on campus that goes both ways. Teachers are expected to fulfill some criteria, but how we do it depends on us. That is why the training you will have might seem unheard of to you, but I am the one who decides them. That being said, today's quirk apprehension test will cover softball pitch, standing long jump, 50-meter dash, endurance running, grip strength, sideways jumps, upper body exercises, and seated toe touch. You may be familiar with these exercises, as they are regulars in middle school. But the only difference is you weren't allowed to use your quirks. Since quirks can make so many differences, there is no standard for physicals nowadays. Although I don't condone the Ministry of Education culture. Anyway, Yairozu, how far could you pitch a softball in middle school? He looked at Makami and asked. 102 meters. Although he wanted to say he had never been to a middle school, he knew what Sensei wanted to ask, so instead of being snarky, he answered honestly. Well, not totally honest, but closest to it. If he didn't use any extra that came with his quirk, which included physical enhancements, 102 meters was his limit. This time, do it with your quirk. Aizawa gave him the softball with a sensor on it. Makami took it with a nod before making his way to the center of a white-marked circle on the field. You can do whatever you want as long as you stay in the circle. Try not to destroy the ball. Oh, and give it all you've got. Sensei, I can go in many ways with this. I can create a rocket and launch it to the next island. He smirked as he created a bazooka and placed the softball inside. When he fired, the ball vanished on the horizon. Aizawa raised the tablet in his hand that read, 2,345 meters. Or, I can create something to cancel the gravity of the ball and keep it in the air indefinitely. That way, the result would be infinite, I guess. He muttered, and at the same time, 2 magnet-like metals appeared in his 2 hands. Another softball thrown by Aizawa was placed between the metals, and when he let them go, the magnets canceled Earth's gravity, and with a small push from him, the ball started to move towards the endless sky. If you want something physical, on the other hand, he grinned as his arm was covered by metals. They were supporting his joints and muscles, and when he threw the metal, an explosion supported the softball, and once again, it vanished towards the horizon. Aizawa showed the tablet and it read, 1893 meters. To improve, you must know where you are standing. All these standards will be your hero foundation from now on, and you will work hard to improve on them. Over 1,500 meters. Sick. Using quirks freely, that is hero department for you. This looks so much fun. Fun eh? Aizawa muttered with a dark aura around him. The class ceased their clamor and looked at him. You have 3 years to become a hero. And is this how you act? Do you even take this seriously? Since it is so, whoever comes in last place in all 8 tests will be judged to have no potential and will be instantly expelled. He finished with an evil grin on his face. Expelled? The class descended to mayhem. Although many of them had the utmost confidence in them, Aizawa didn't say the ones that will perform poorly. He said the last in line, which could be any of them. After all, they didn't know other students and couldn't predict how they would perform compared to them. There were also a few that had no doubt in their abilities. None so ever, like Makami, Momo, Todoroki, Baguko. Izuku, on the other hand, was about to go crazy. He couldn't control his quirk, and if he used it, he would cripple himself. There was no other way around it. He only had 1 shot, 2 if he separated his legs from arms, but all in all, he would be incapacitated afterward. We're free to do what we want about the circumstances of our students. Aizawa's calm voice reverberated and pulled them all from their stupor. Aizawa combed his long black bangs from his face to peer down at the students with dark, scary eyes and said, "Welcome to UA's hero course. Natural disasters, big accidents, and selfish villains." Aizawa said, "Calamities that cannot be predicted or foreseen. Japan is under constant threat. Heroes are the ones who reverse those situations. If you wanted to have normal high school life where you can hang out with your friends over a burger, too bad you signed up in the wrong school. For the next 3 years, UA will do all it can to give you one hardship one after another. Go beyond. Plus ultra." Aizawa motioned the students to come forth with a beckoning index finger. "Overcome it with all you've got and go further." That speech did the trick, and students gained the immense determination to prove themselves. They wanted to become heroes. Although fun was part of a life of a teenager, they had the immense determination to see their dreams through. So what was a little bit of hardship? If it would help them get better, it was welcomed. "Let's start with a 50-meter dash," he called, and in twos they started to race. Ida was the fastest until it was his and Momo's turn. "What do you think?" he asked. "Spring," he suggested. "Too easy." Momo shook her head. "How about roller skates?" Nah, too fun." "How about just go?" Aizawa shouted. He smirked and created a backpack behind him. And when Aizawa gave the signal, he jumped into the air. The backpack behind him exploded with wind and carried his body forward at record speed. Next to her, Momo was holding onto a skateboard with rockets only 1/100th of a second behind him, and when they passed the machine that calculated their timing, 1.96 seconds, Momo raised her hand for a high five, and he obliged while the others were looking at them like a pair of freaks. Second, hand grip. The duo created gloves that could exert a ton of power, and tied in this one too. Standing long jump, cleared the sandbox and tied with almost anyone except Izuku. Repeated side steps, pair of springboards and tied at the top. Ball throw, Momo copied a leaf from his page and created magnets that could cancel the gravity of an object. Well, although it sounded amazing, it was actually pretty simple. Couldn't be used on items heavier than a kilo. They could achieve similar results with balloons, it was just fancier with these devices. In the end, the twins tied with Uraraka. As for the rest, they were truly physical exercises, and although they could create stuff to support themselves, it wasn't necessary. From the age of 4, the duo worked every single day, so even without boosting themselves with their quirks, they could take first place easily. Izuku was in last place and had only 1 shot. He still hasn't thrown a ball. Well, same as in anime. He was about to use the quirk and implode his arm, but Aizawa stopped him. "I erased your quirk." The silence that descended when he said that was deafening. Not many knew this unpopular hero, but he had one of the most useful/useless quirks. He was the worst enemy of the strongest villains, but his quirk did nothing but level his power of him with others. If there was another person standing behind him, he would die. That was what made him so scary. He trained his art and body so he could battle against villains with just his body. Izuku then used only a finger to send the ball further than Bakugo did. The blondie was boiling with rage when Makami and Momo beat him in every single stage, so when even Izuku passed him in the throw, he lost his reason and attacked. Makami's hand twitched, but he didn't act. Although he promised Inko, there were times when it was better for a man to take the beating. If he defended Izuku in front of everyone, it would be more embarrassing for the kid. Luckily, Aizawa acted and kept Bakugo back. He really wanted to beat that shit down and remove his quirk to let him know it could happen to anyone, and he shouldn't have acted so high and mighty just because he had a shitty quirk, but that would spell too much trouble. Maybe in the future. To no one's surprise, Momo and him tied in the first place and followed by Todoroki, and Aizawa said the expelling was just a joke. Sure, 154 students he expelled before Izuku were also jokes. When it came to the protagonist, it turned into a joke. Whatever. With it, the first day of school ended. It was exciting in a sense, but if he had to admit it, Makami would say that it was a bit dry. Maybe he overdid his training and now he had no sense of competition. Only Momo could catch up with him. Let's go. He sighed and put his hand on her shoulder while she put hers around his waist. They looked like a couple from afar. Yaoyorozu-san, wait. A voice came from afar and stopped them. He turned to look and see the Orangette walking towards them with other girls. Which one of us? He asked as he gazed at the smiling girl. God, she was beautiful. She had teal eyes and long orange hair that she tied into a high ponytail on the left side of her head. Her bangs were split into 3 clumps around her eyes. Momo-san, she answered with a small blush. We girls are gonna hang out and get to know each other. Do you want to join us? Momo looked at her brother and saw him nodding. I would like that. I will go first then, Momo-chan. Have fun. He then waved his hand and walked away. Not that Momo was asking for permission, but they decided to celebrate alone after school, but since the girls asked, they decided to postpone it. That look carried that message. Well, then I will take Nejira on a date. He thought to himself and looked at her location on the map that appeared in front of his eyes. She is returning home. A pair of rolling skates appeared under his feet and started to carry him forward. Although it was forbidden to use quirks in public, using Quirk's products wasn't so he could use his quirk to his advantage. In less than 5 minutes, he arrived at an intersection and saw Nejira hopping toward home. He grabbed her without giving any warning and earned himself a scream, but when he kissed her lips, she recognized and stopped protesting. Let's go on a date, he said as he looked into her eyes. Okay. She nodded, then buried her face in his chest. He looked for a suitable place while moving on his rolling skate and found a romantic place where couples could watch a movie while eating in private booths. There were also karaoke booths they could visit afterward. Seems like a good time to advance our relationship, he muttered and rolled towards that destination, and they arrived in no time. Welcome, lady, sir. The waitress greeted them and looked at his uniform. Nejira was in casual dress, but the waitress could tell they were expensive, so she was respectful. Do you have a reservation? No. Is it possible to dine without reservation? Makami asked with a smile. There is an opening. You are lucky. The waitress smiled and led them in. The booth was at the corner of the restaurant and had a nice ambience. The wood exteriors looked freshening. When the sliding door opened, the duo saw the cushions were velvet and comfortable, while the screen across the couch was curved with good quality. You can order from the tablet on the table and pick any movie you want to watch. I will alert you 5 minutes before I come with the food and only come again if you ask for my service. Please have a seat. The waitress smiled, and after they were seated, she shut the door. Makami reached and locked the door and pulled out a device from his pocket and scanned the room. What is that, Mocha-chan? Nejira asked with a tilt of her head. This scans hidden devices. I am checking if there are cameras or recorders. He sighed when it came back negative, so he put it back into his pocket and hugged Najira. Najira-chan, I missed you. He acted spoiled and kissed her. I missed you too, Mocha-chan. She sighed helplessly. Lately, her internship was taking up all her time. Although they were a couple for almost 2 years now, they still haven't progressed much, but their relationship was as close as ever. If someone else saw them, they would assume they were siblings or somehow related, but they knew they got the most affection than everyone else. Deep inside, they wanted this. They loved each other, and nothing could break that bond. How about Momo-chan? Have you started to date her? Not yet. Although she too has feelings for me, I think she has some apprehensions. Makami smiled wryly. He was the same. Despite admitting his feelings, he was still a little perturbed about the whole ordeal. Don't you dare to lose her to another boy, Najira warned with a frown. We are one big family. I don't want anyone else to come between us. Ever. That will never happen. Don't worry. He smiled as he leaned to kiss her, then he asked with a smirk, does that include our mothers? I know you have also feelings for Mika-chan, and I have no problem with it, but I am not sure about Mom. It is not that I don't feel weird about it, it is still a bit weird, but if she is okay with it, I don't think I would object. I know she is lonely for years, and I want her to be happy with all my heart. But like I said, I don't want anyone to come between us, she said while looking at the table. Hee, you are so cute. He grabbed her and sat her on his lap, then started to kiss her deeply. His tongue invaded her mouth while she tried to escape. Let's order first. She blushed. Fine. He grumbled and looked at the tablet attached to the table. What do you want to eat? Sushi. Okay. Let's eat light. They picked their food and then looked through the movie catalog. Let's watch a classic again. Okay. How about... In the end, they picked an anime movie, Your Name, and started to watch it. Food arrived shortly after, and after an enjoyable hour or so, they left the booth and entered the karaoke room. Do you want to sing? Najira asked as she looked at him cutely, while he was checking the room with the device. What do you think? He grinned as he held her and started to kiss her. She blushed red and then pulled away. You are so mean, pervert. But I am your pervert, he shamelessly said and kissed her again. This time, she didn't reject and accepted him with an open mouth. Their tongues started to dance, while their hands roamed around each other's bodies. He was drawing a map of her body with his fingertips. His fingers moved from her lips to jaws, from there to her neck, to her collarbone, her breasts, stomach, toned thighs, and sweet feet. She was perfect to the detail, and he couldn't get enough of her. While he was drowned in her intoxicating smell, she wasn't any different. She was tasting his amazing lips, while her hands were touching his defined muscles. His back was broad and strong. It was like a wall she could lean on. His shoulders were wide and strong, like a column that could carry her. His arms were strong and warm, like a guardian. She loved everything about him, and he was the same. They were enjoying each other's embrace, not only lips. This mutual feeling made the kissing only more passionate. He kissed her and Najira reacted immediately. She kissed back passionately. She lay in his embrace blissfully as she closed her eyes and purred like a kitten while he stroked her tummy softly. I love you, Mocha-chan. I love you too, Najira-chan. Staying like that for half an hour longer, they dressed up and left the room after Makami destroyed every single piece of evidence they might have left. The walk back home was quiet, but both had smiles on their faces while holding hands. They looked cute together. When they were around the corner, Makami pulled her and kissed her deeply, then they walked back home. It was a perfect date. The second day started slow, with general courses in the morning and lunch in the afternoon. Makami spent his time with girls most of the time in the classes and recesses while opting to eat with the boys to keep it tight. After all, he didn't want them near any of his girls, and to do that, he had to be their bras, so they wouldn't go after Braz's girl. Girls also had their clique thanks to Itsuka. Momo told him that most of the talk was about the boys and the one who was most talked about was of course him. So we started to talk about boys, and your name came up. Momo started. What did you tell about me? He asked. Well, let me give you a quick rundown then. So Momo, how does it feel like to live with that stud? Mina asked when they were done with the introductions. Mina, that is not appropriate, Itsuka said. But she too was curious. And from the look of it, everyone else was expecting her to answer. Let's just hear it. I am sure she had seen him naked several times. Mina shamelessly grinned. More than several times, actually. Momo acted like a clueless little girl as she looked into their eyes. But at the end, with a grin, she blew her cover. Want to know what he hides underneath those clothes? The girls nodded in unison while gulping down their drinks. Too bad. I will not tell you. She raised her chin up and looked down at them. Onaikan is mine. You can only look from afar. You baddie. Mina protested as she flailed her arms around. Haha. Itsuka chuckled as she looked at them. Have to admit though, he is powerful, handsome, and rich. He is nice, easy to talk to, and reliable. If he carries a satisfactory weapon too. I can only describe him as perfect. Oh, he carries a weapon, all right. Momo teased while Uraraka, Kyoka, and Tsuyu sprayed their drinks. You are so cute. By the way, what do you mean rich, Itsuka? Toru asked. Didn't you know? Itsuka asked in surprise. Yaoyorozu is one of the richest families in Japan. Well, even in the world. Really? Some of the others also asked in shock as they looked at Momo, who really blushed this time. My grandfather was a big shareholder of Island. My father later inherited his shares and created other businesses as well. Well, Onii-chan is the one who takes care of us, but yeah, we are rich, Momo said with a smile. Although her words were blunt, girls could tell that she wasn't being pretentious. She was just being honest instead of being fake modest. Dream boy, really? Mina cupped her face as her eyes shone. Do you call Mocha-chan? Onii-chan? Jero? Tsuyu asked. Aren't you two twins? Well, we are. But I am used to calling him like that, Momo scratched the back of her head. To call him Onii-chan was just natural to her. You two are close. Mina grinned. Yeah, really close. Momo smiled back. She was really grateful for Mokami's support in her life. She couldn't dream of a life without him. Okay, let's talk about serious stuff now. Mina held Momo's hand and asked, does he have a girlfriend? Onii-chan is not someone that likes to be tied down, Momo answered after thinking for a while. Of course, she long realized how big of a pervert her brother was. She loved him with all his heart and nothing would change that, but she was also aware of the fact that he would have multiple partners. Although she had no proof yet, she just knew it. You mean he is a dog? Yui Kodai spoke for the first time ever since they sat down. I wouldn't say he was a playboy. Momo softened the term and looked at the girls. Let's say he has a big heart. He would never intentionally hurt a girl, but he is not the type to settle down with a girl. Damn. Makami held his chest in shock when Momo was done summarizing the events to him. She knew him too well. She even used his words and even groomed girls for him. Such a cute sister. Such a good harem queen. Momo-chan, I love you. He hugged her and kissed her forehead. But don't call your Onii-chan pervert. You are a pervert. Momo huffed but enjoyed the aftertaste of the kiss. And like that, while girls were looking at him with a mixture of emotions, classes ended and afternoon arrived, and just as he expected, a giant man entered through the door like a normal man. I am. The familiar, manly rising voice echoes through the hall, even reaching inside the Wana classroom. Many's faces brightened in anticipation as their all-time favorite hero was about to appear. Abruptly, the classroom door slammed open and a muscular man popped through the door. Coming through the door like a normal person, it is All Might, in his Silver Age costume. He is really a teacher in UA. Students excitedly talked among themselves while jumping on their seats. Who didn't love All Might at this age? All Might stood tall and proud before the class and said with his boisterous booming voice, "I teach hero basic training. It is a subject where you train in different ways to learn the basics of being a hero. You'll take most units of this subject. Let's get right into it." All Might flexed his muscles as he prepared something hidden from the class. "This is what we'll do today." The blonde, muscular man then dramatically revealed a cue card with the word battle on it. Combat training. And the shit went down. Students were eager for physical training after hours of boring classes in the morning. And now that they learned it was All Might who was teaching, they were over the moon. Students, according to seat numbers, grabbed their hero costumes and left the classroom to change. Momo and Makami were the last. So when they too got up to take their cases, she looked into his eyes, and with a glint whispered, "Behave." "Haha." He laughed as he walked to the boys' changing room. She had already seen his hero suit, and thus knew its effect on women. That is why she warned him. Not that it was anything ostentatious. It was as simple as it could get. But on him, well, it was a different story. He walked into the room and saw most had already changed. He too started to undress and folded his clothes neatly, opened the case, and looked at the 3 pieces of items. He quickly wore them and left the room. Since he was last to arrive to the room and he was meticulous with his clothes, he was last to change, and by the time he was done, others had already left. He smiled and walked out as well. On the way, he saw Momo leaving the girls' room and they walked shoulder to shoulder. When he arrived at the ground beta, All Might and the rest of the students were already there. They all turned to look at them. "Damn," one of them said. "Damn, indeed," another said. Momo, unlike the anime costume, wore skin-tight red leather with black markings. It was covering her whole body, as it was made of her skin. Although the clothes she was wearing was made of skin cells, it was as durable as diamond and resistant to most elements. Her shoes were also the same. Other than those, there were only pair of lenses on her eyes. Those weren't regular contact lenses but supercomputers attached to the chip in her brain. She could control them with just her thoughts. The lenses had as much vision as his organic eyes, and extras too. If she created a drone as he did in the exam, he could connect it to her lenses and see the map. There was also a list of formulas of different materials stored in the chip in her brain, in case she needed to create something. All in all, she had anything she needed. Makami, on the other hand, had simpler clothes. A black harem pants, real name, and a white unbuttoned shirt. His bare chest and 8-pack were open in full glory. The shirt's arms were folded twice, revealing his forearm, and at his feet, there were a pair of black boots, all made of his skin tissues, ultra durable. He also tied his hair behind his back into a ponytail to prevent it from blocking his vision. The duo looked at the drooling students and chuckled. The boys were ogling Momo while the girls were looking at the ultimate eye candy. There were a few oddities in the group, of course. Like Todoroki was looking at the sky as if it was the most interesting thing, while Bakugo was looking at him in hatred. Izuka's eyes were jumping from one side to the other, while Shoji's all tentacles had eyes now and half of them were focused on Momo while the other half was on him. Strange. Kyoko was also an oddity. She was looking at both of them, and her face was about to drip blood. She looked like she was having something of too much and was about to die from it, but she was also blissful to die in this way. Interesting. They say the clothes make the man, young men and ladies. All Might proudly give a speech. Be fully aware. Gradually, one by one, the student of Class 1A began to flex their clothes. From now on, you are heroes. All Might smiled as he scanned his students. That's great, everyone. You all look cool. Makami looked at Izuku and shook his head. When Inko came to him and asked what he thought about the costume she made for her son, he brutally destroyed her. First figuratively, then literally on the bed. After she satisfied him with her pretty mouth, he created a hero costume for Izuku, just like what he wore after he mastered One for All. With the claws, boots, and everything. It was extremely durable as well. He didn't mind helping others, and he would eventually create costumes for the rest as well. Some of their clothes were ridiculous after all. Before we start, Makami said before All Might continue. Anything you want to say, Mokami boy? He asked with a smile. Well, Toru-chan's hero costume is her birthday suit, and that is understandable given that no one can see her. But Momo-chan and I have special lenses allow us to see her to a certain extent, and I would like to report so she wouldn't be in any unfair situation, he said while he gazed into her eyes. She was still clothed, as she could easily take off her clothes when it was her turn. After all, even if no one could see her, being naked was uncomfortable. Why you can see me? Toru asked in disbelief. Yes. He smiled. You are really pretty, Toru-chan. Like super cute. Really? Mina asked. Really? Momo added. Let me show you, Toru-chan. And if you want, you can show others. Makami walked to her and showed his phone. Since his eyes were connected to the AI in his brain, he could digitize anything his eyes could see or hear. Nigel, transfer the picture to my phone. Right away, master. An elderly answered in his mind. Oh my god. Toru brought her hand to her mouth upon seeing the picture. Then she hugged him while kissing his lips. Luckily, she was still invisible, and no one could see where she kissed. How? My family tried many things but nothing worked. This is my own creation. I believe only Momo and I have this kind of camera, so I doubt anyone else can see you, he explained. Amazing! Other exclaimed. Let us see too. Mineta shouted, ruining the moment. Girls look at him as if he was an insect, while the said insect crawled behind Izuku. Do you want the picture? He asked while holding Toru. Yes, please. Let me input my number. She grabbed her phone and added herself to some of the social media apps he used. He then sent the picture to her. All right. Congrats, Toru girl, and thank you, Mokami boy. But let's keep showing the picture for later and continue with the battle training. All Might said, I also thank you for your honesty and not taking advantage of a young girl, Mokami boy. All I can ask for you to deactivate your visions when it is Hagakure girl's turn. Luckily, neither you nor your sister will face her, so it shouldn't cause any problem. Alright, we can do that, sensei. He smiled. Momo nodded too. Good. Now let's start with the training. We're going to move ahead 2 steps. All Might answered while raising 2 fingers. Most of the time, fighting villains takes place outside, but if you look at the total numbers, atrocious villains appear indoors at a higher rate. Imprisonment, house arrest, backroom deals. In this society filled with heroes, All Might cleared his throat. Truly intelligent villains hide in the shadows. For this class, you'll be split into villains and heroes and fight 2-on-2 indoor battles. Students asked many stupid questions, but Makami ignored them. He already knew what the training was about, so he wasn't worried. But from what All Might said, he deduced that this time around, unlike what happened in anime, they were matched by Sensei himself. The situation is that the villains have hidden a nuclear weapon somewhere in their hideout. The heroes are trying to dispose of that. All Might explained the exercise. The heroes need to catch the villains or get the nuclear weapon back in the allotted time. The villains need to protect the nuclear weapon for the whole time or catch the heroes. The symbol of peace then pulled out a list and showed them to others. Teams and opponents have been determined by me, so take a look. When Makami saw the list, he realized why Sensei did so he smiled and looked at his sister. She too was looking at him with an eager, bloodthirsty smile. Although pros often work with heroes they had never met before, most of the time, you pair up with people you are comfortable with. In the next training, we will pair randomly as well, but for today, I want to see what you are capable of. The blonde hero said. Team A, Makami Yaoyorozu and Yui Kodai. Team D, Momo Yaoyorozu and Ishido Mina, Makami against Momo. I can't wait. Toru jumped up and down as she looked at the twins, while Yui and Ishido walked toward their partners. Hello, Kodai-san. Please take care of me. He smiled while the girl nodded slightly. You too, Yaoyorozu-san. Please call me Makami. My last name is too mouthful. He sighed. Okay, you can call me Yui too. Momo also started to chat with Ishido, but neither talked about their plans. They were in the open after all. Team A will be the heroes and Team D will be the villains. All Might declares. Everyone else, head toward the monitor room. Hi, Sensei. Other teams also started to talk while moving in front of the screens. Villain team, go in first and set up. All Might instructs. In 5 minutes, the hero team will break in, and the battle will start. Momo and Ashida nodded curtly and walked toward the building. Before they entered, All Might gave them a piece of advice. Momo girl, Mina girl, learn to think from the perspective of the villains. This is pretty close to a real battle. Go all out. Don't be afraid to get hurt. Hi, Sensei. Outside the building, Yui stood next to Makami, while he was sitting on the ground with his eyes closed. She wasn't a person that would take initiative, so she was waiting for him to make a plan and tell him. But when 2 minutes passed, and she didn't even move, she thought he wasn't even taking her into consideration and was ignoring her. It hurt her a little. Although he was strong, she was powerful too. Her quirk was quite destructive. Makami. She still wanted to talk and give him a chance, but Makami shushed her before she could even speak. She was really annoyed by now. She was about to walk away and ignore him when he opened his eyes and looked at him with a smile. I am sorry, Yui. I was blocking Momo's probes while she was doing the same. I cannot let her listen to our conversation, so I placed a jammer around the area by only allowing Sensei to watch and hear us. We have 2 more minutes, so let's talk about our quirks and come up with a plan. At the same time, the almost exact same thing was happening inside the room. Ishido was being ignored by Momo, although the pink-skinned girl knew Momo wasn't the type of girl that would hurt others, so she patiently waited. And when she blocked Mokami's probes and placed a jammer, she turned to Ishido and said the almost same thing. Those in the monitor room looked at the screens with dumbfounded expressions. Unlike in the anime, all the students could listen to what they were talking about, and seeing twins acting in the same way, they didn't know what to think. Sensei, since they can do all those, what if they hack this monitor room to spy on each other? Isuka asked. They wouldn't do that. All Might shook his head. Otherwise, they would have to block our signals too, which would be counterproductive. Since they can see through each other's ideas, they can also compromise when necessary. My quirk is size, which allows me to change the size of any non-living thing I touch. Then I can change them back by connecting my fingers, Yui explained. Amazing, Makami said with beaming eyes. Do you have to return all of them to their original states? Or can you control which ones you change? Heh? I can control it, she said, flustered to be praised by the strongest person in their class. Such a marvelous ability, he said again as he planned what to do. Wait, does Momo-chan know about your ability? She nodded. We talked yesterday. I see. That would make things more difficult. He grinned. I can create tens of small drones and you can make them smaller. That way we can sneak them inside. But Momo would create nets to defend against them. He probably thinks creating tens of drones while using Yui-chan's ability to change their sizes and send them inside. So I will create nets to small any drone, Momo said to Ishido at the same time. I will also create fake bombs and place them all around the building so they won't know which one is the real one. That way, the only way they can win is to take us down. She is probably thinking of creating a replica of bombs to trick us so we can only battle. Although that would put us in a disadvantageous position, Makami thought. While the duo was thinking about the next course of action and taking precautions against each other, spectators were looking at the two with their mouths wide open. Can they hear each other's thoughts? Toru exclaimed in shock. They are twins after all. It is normal for them to know each other so well, Tokoyami said, but he too was shocked. I still think they are listening to each other through the monitor room, Mineta muttered. Now, let's start the indoor person-to-person combat training with Team A and Team D. Start. All Might spoke to the microphone from the monitor room when the time was up and his voice reverberated in ground beta. Let's do it, Yui-chan, Makami said, and the girl nodded. So, You too can create anything so long as you know the atomic formula? Yui asked. Well, same as yours, we cannot create living things. Makami shook his head. You said Momo probably created tens of fake bombs. Could she create a real one as well? She asked in trepidation. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, Yui-chan. To create something so big, we must also sacrifice equally big energy. He shook his head, but it was a lie. With their new organs, the amount of fat they could store was enormous. They could destroy half of the Earth in under an hour if they really wanted to. Although both needed to create matter in their body before their powers evolve, now that they could change the atomic structure of matter they already created, so creating an empty atomic bomb, then filling it after the shell left their body was as easy as breathing. The only silver lining was, neither were villains. Momo can only affect things she created and turn them back into lipids, while Makami can change other things as well, but he cannot turn them back into lipids. He too can only suck back items he created from his own energy. He also can create living tissues. How does Kyoka find people with her quirk? She uses her heartbeat as a sound wave, and by using her jacks, she listens to the feedback and creates a map, like how bats do with sonar. So, if I change how I hear and imitate her method, can I find the real bomb? Makami thought to himself and walked to the wall. As he did so, his ears started to change. His ears were one of the few places he didn't alter yet, as he wasn't sure how he could adapt to changes. After all, the ear wasn't only responsible for hearing but also balance. Thus, he was a little apprehensive when it came to that small area, but now he needed to make it. He touched the wall and closed his eyes. The reason was for balancing himself with the wall, and when he succeeded in altering his ears, he would use it to find Momo and Ishido. It didn't take long for him to alter his ear, and soon, the voice of all origins started to fill his brain. He blocked most while some he couldn't, so he was a bit overwhelmed, but luckily he was holding the wall so he didn't fall. He was also facing away from the camera, so others couldn't see his face. After a while, he got used to new voices he could hear and learned how to filter them. When he was done with that, he used his heartbeat and sent it to walls through his hand by amplifying through his bones. In no time at all, he learned their location, but as he predicted, there were already more than 30 duplicate bombs in the building. Let's go, he said and walked to the entrance. Just like that, Yui was surprised. They didn't even make a plan. When your opponent can counter your every move, you have to fight head-on. He sighed. Step by step, they arrived at the final floor and stood against Momo and Ishido. Ishido was grinning while Momo had a serious expression. Trap over the door? He asked as he created a gun with plastic bullets. He fired at the wall, and in the next second, a bucket fell down. It was filled with sticky liquid. I told you it wouldn't work, Momo sighed. He didn't locate it with his new ability. They must have placed it after they entered. Let's fight then, sis. Makami smiled. It has been a while since we spared, right? Momo took a stance. How about only martial arts? I was going to suggest the same. Let's not destroy the building. Makami nodded. Yui, can I leave Pinky to you? He asked. She nodded and pulled out pebbles from her pocket. They were actually big-ass rocks created by him while waiting outside. She used her ability to shrink them down. She threw them at Ishido, but she simply jumped away. Yui threw the rock accurately at her opponent, and while they were in the air, she returned them to their original sizes. So without losing their momentum, a big piece of rock moved towards the pink-skinned girl. Ishido kept jumping around, trying to dodge the rocks, and when she couldn't, she used her acid to melt them. Makami smiled slightly but soon returned back to battle with Momo. They moved at the same time and threw fists at each other. They were training together for more than 10 years and sparred hundreds of times over the years. They knew each other's techniques and openings. Both sides could read the other like an open book. Momo was faster as she was nimbler, but Makami was more experienced. He had hundreds of fiction in his mind about martial arts. He was also physically bigger and stronger. He used his kicks and parried the punches while changing his stance to throw his own blows and kicks at her. He tried to keep her away using defensive stances, so he could use the space between them to block attacks and counter them with powerful strikes. He kept on testing and probing wherever possible, playing guard as well as attacking in quick succession, then countering again in a split second, which made it difficult for Momo to get through. But soon enough, she found an opening and jumped forward with all of her strength, throwing punches left and right swiftly. Makami managed to block the first few throws, but eventually, he had no choice but to take a step back when Momo changed her stance into a monkey stance and then kicked him from behind with an axe kick. He barely dodged it, tumbling away just in time, before recovering quickly and regrouping to face her again. They used blocks and dodges to dodge the other's attack and then counterattacked. It was a mixture of multiple martial arts like karate, judo, aikido, and jujitsu, while they were also using their own styles with some special touch. Momo and Makami moved faster than before as they kept countering each other. They landed punches and kicks in different places like the face, chest, leg, and stomach, but none of them got hurt since both sides were aware of their strength and didn't go overboard with it. After a few minutes of intense battle, Momo jumped away from Makami and finally spoke. "You win." "Momo, what is going on?" Ashida asked as she dodged another big rock. "We hit each other the same number of times, but since he is stronger than me, it means he won. This was one of the rules of our spars." Momo smiled. "I am faster than him, but he physically overpowers me." "Damn it!" Ashido cursed. "Don't worry. I will not interfere with your battle. I have full trust in Yui." He smiled. Yui blushed when she heard him but didn't turn around. She pulled tens of pebbles and started to throw them randomly. Then she brought her finger together and most of them enlarged. Ashido dodged all of them easily and smirked. In the next second, she started to glide toward Yui with her acid. But as she did so, Yui enlarged some other rocks on the ground. Some of the pebbles on Ashido's path, which Yui previously haven't reverted back, now become as big as her, and Ashido suddenly tripped over and lost her balance. Yui dashed forward and sent 2 pebbles at her opponent, and before Ashida could destroy them, Yui locked her arms down and let small pebbles hit her on the stomach. "I could have activated them." "I know." Ashida snorted. "You win." Makami and Momo both smiled as they watched their friends have a fair fight. Soon, All Might announced that Team A won the match, and all 4 walked to the monitor room where other students were waiting. When everyone was there, they all analyzed the battle and congratulated not only those who won, but also those who lost. Yui and Makami for their strategies, Ashido for her powerful attacks, and Momo for her quick wits and martial abilities. Everyone was satisfied with each other's performance, which made it more exciting for them to compete in future battles. The next battles began with Team B, Itsuka Kendo and Minoru Mineta versus Team E, Todoroki Shoto and Mizo Shoji. Although Todoroki was a bit overpowered, the crowd was still eager to see who would come out on top. The second round saw an intense clash between Todoroki's ice-based attacks and Itsuka's giant fists, resulting in a stalemate that lasted for several minutes until finally, Itsuka managed to break through his opponent's defense with power fist attacks to reach the bomb room. Sadly, Shoji was able to apprehend Mineta quickly and help Todoroki, and in 2v1, Itsuka lost. In the third battle, Team C, Izuku Midoriya and Achiko Uraraka faced off against Team F, Bakugo Katsuki and Ida Tenya. The 2 teams had drastically different fighting styles, which made it difficult to determine who would win this matchup. Achiko's gravity manipulation ability allowed her to levitate her teammate, while Bakugo used his explosions to push him forward, making it difficult for anyone to predict what might happen next. In the end, however, it was Ida's speed that proved too much for Izuku as he used his engine mode to blitz past his opponents before they could react. Things were a bit different than in anime. Izuku wasn't as desperate, nor Bakugo was as crazy. Although they still lost, Izuku wasn't on verge of dying. Probably because Makami warned him about how he was upsetting his mother by showing off. So he told Izuku that if it wasn't a life and death battle, or that he was protecting someone else, he shouldn't be risking his own life. For the fourth battle, Team G, Toru Hagakure, and Masahiro Ojiro fought against Team H, Yuga Aoyama and Kyoka Jiro. Kyoka used her earphone jacks as grappling hooks, which enabled her to swing around the battlefield and dodged Ojiro's tail attacks. Since they were in a closed area, she could blast the building off, so she opted to dodge until Aoyama take Toru out. And as they promised, Momo and Makami deactivated their visions, so they wouldn't see the invisible girl naked. True to her name, Toru was truly invisible, so she easily touched the bomb while no one was looking and won the battle easily. Finally, Team J, Fumikage Tokoyami, and Tsuyu Azui faced off against Team H, Eijiro Kirishima and Hantasiro. It was an epic battle between two heavy hitters of the class. Both teams were surprisingly well coordinated, as they made sure to use their strengths to make up for each other's weaknesses. Tokoyami used his dark shadow to keep Eijiro at bay, while Tsuyu used her tongue to snag and disable Siro's tape-shooting quirk. At one point, Eijiro managed to break through the darkness, but Tokoyami created a barrier that protected both himself and Tsuyu from his attack. Ultimately, Eijiro was forced to retreat due to the overwhelming force of Tokoyami's quirk, which left Tsuyu free to grab the bomb and secure victory for her team. The crowd cheered wildly as all four fighters stood tall after successfully completing their respective missions. All five teams demonstrated impressive skills, strategies, and tactics during the battles that left everyone in awe of their capabilities. Even though some teams had won or lost various fights, in the end, everyone was satisfied with how things had gone overall. All Might stepped onto the platform, his words echoing around the stadium. "All of your battles were exceptional," he exclaimed. "Your courage, wits, and martial abilities have been extraordinary. I have no doubt that all of you will go on to become powerful heroes one day." "Thank you, Sensei." All students answered together and cheered. With it, battles were over. "Now go and change." Students moved to the rooms to change while Bakugo started daggers at Makami, Momo, Todoroki, and especially Izuku. He was threatened by 3 students of his own age, and one that was previously quirkless. Someone he thought he could squash anytime he wanted. Now, that insect could stand against him with his own abilities. In the battle, without damaging himself too much, Izuku won against him with just wits. Bakugo was mad. He lost his reason. Since Izuku was warned by Makami, and there were microphones as well, the duo didn't talk about their pasts like they did in anime, so he was still bottled up with idiotic emotions. While they were excitedly walking and discussing events, small explosions were popping in Bakugo's hand. All of a sudden, he picked up his speed, and his empty look changed to a determined one. And in the next second, he was behind Izuku, but all of a sudden, something huge appeared in his vision. When he raised his head to look, he saw a smiling face. But unlike the last time, this smile wasn't amiable. No, this smile was dangerous. As if a serpent looking at a mouse promised pain. Bakugo took a step back, then ashamed of his own action shouted and attacked. Fortunately, he was an idiot. He shouted before he attacked, so others also turned to look at him. All Might was also close by, and girls could see them too. Makami dodged the approaching hand and dodged under Bakugo's arm. The hand behind his head exploded, but he ignored it. Instead, he grabbed the same stretched arm and slammed the body attached to it to the ground as hard as he could. "Mokami boy!" All Might shouted and dashed towards them. He held Mokami's shoulder and then looked at Bakugo, who was puking out blood. "What is going on?" "I don't know. I saw his bloodthirsty expression and attack, so I defended myself." He shrugged. Everyone saw what happened, so he didn't care if he hurt Bakugo or not. "Kaken." Izuku ran towards the boy and checked on him. "He is too injured." "Why, Makami? Damn wimp." He cursed in his mind as he turned All Might. "It has been only 2 days since we met, and I don't know who I can trust. If I see anyone attacking me or my friends, I will use my full power to defuse them. I hope you can understand my train of thought. You are not in the wrong, Mokami boy, and I don't blame you. I just hoped you wouldn't be heavy-handed." All Might sighed. I am sorry about that. I couldn't control my strength and I panicked. He attacked all of a sudden. He answered. I know I couldn't react in time either. All Might gave a reassuring smile and showed the building. Go and change. Don't worry, man, we saw what happened. You were just defending yourself. Kirishima patted his shoulder as they entered the changing room. Bakugo is sometimes not manly, right? You shouldn't feel bad about it. Shiro also added. Ojiro and Shoji too came and talked to him. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. He smiled. At this time, the door opened and little fidgety Izuku walked in with tears in his eyes. Why did you do that? Did you have to slam him so hard? He borderline shouted. He did it to protect you. All of a sudden, Todoroki said from the side. Makami turned to give a cold look. Sorry? The half-boy muttered and turned to change. What do you mean to protect me? Izuku asked in shock. Seeing no one was answering, he walked to Todoroki and insisted. The Icefire user looked at Makami over Izuku. Seeing him not caring, he explained with a sigh. Bakugo wasn't thinking straight. His hands were popping with explosions. It is common in emitter types when affected by emotions, quirks got out of hand. I thought he was just in a bad mood because he lost, but all of a sudden he focused on your back and was about to attack. It was Yaoyorozu-san who stepped in between you two. Seeing him meddling made Bakugo only angrier, so he attacked with all his power. Now you know. Wow, I didn't know. Kirishima sat on the bench as he looked at the ground. You are manly, Makami. Now I think he deserved what he got. Others also said. Izuku didn't know what to say. He not only blamed the person who had protected him, but he also defended the person that wanted to attack him. Makami also had no intention to reveal any of these, and would just keep mum. But he like an idiot insisted, and now he looked bad in front of everyone. Sorry? He mumbled and disappeared into the shower. Whatever. Makami shrugged as he removed his clothes. He took a towel and also hit the shower without covering his body. While he did so, all the others looked at their own meats and hung their heads in shame, while Shoji, behind his mask, was drooling.
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going, plus it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.